So we'll get underway for another session. Just another reminder about props. So for tonight, well, not props, but necessary equipment. Water bottle, if you have it, keep it handy. We're not going to be lifting it or throwing it around or doing anything exciting with it tonight, but for drinks, breaks, make sure that's handy and within reach without you disappearing anywhere. And for an exercise that we're going to be doing later, for those of you that want to do it with a little bit higher degree of difficulty, but not too high, have a step handy. Doesn't have to be exactly like this one, but it does need to be something that is steady. If you're going to step onto and jump off it, for example, or step onto it and switch over it, we don't want something that's going to drop and lose you or cause you to roll an ankle or anything like that. So if you've got something suitable that you've prepared earlier or you set yourself up with from last week, have that handy as well. When I do that exercise later, I'll make sure I do one set of those with the box. Okay. If everyone's good to go, we'll get straight into it. Tonight, given that, so slightly different workout than we did last week. Last week when we were we're a couple of weeks out from competition, so we were on the far side of state championships and on the near side of the state championship marathon. But at the moment, because we're in the middle of the week, we're only a few days out from state championship marathon. I don't want to make it an off-skate session that takes a couple of days to recover from, and I don't want people with residual soreness from this workout. So instead of that high back-on-back work bouts of leg work that we did last week, we're going to break up the leg work with some core work tonight. So you'll get a chance to recover from each. And the bouts of leg work that we do each time are going to be that little bit shorter. So good news for those of you that might have pulled up a little bit sore from last week's workout. Kicking it off with a warm-up, getting yourselves out into the middle of your space. Let's get things warmed up so that we can rely on them. We'll start with some ankle rotations. One of the few times that we roll our toes across the ground or any pressure with our toes on the ground, because of course when we're in our skates, we want relaxed toes. We don't want to be trying to apply pressure through our skate via the toes, and we never want to be clawing at the bottom of our boots either. In a change direction, take that ankle through the opposite way, making our leg look like a piece of spaghetti right now. And shifting your weight over, we're going to change sides. Send that ankle round on a nice big orbit through its full range and other way. We'll do things in a slightly different order tonight. We'll move up through the mobility stuff. So we'll go straight into knee flex from here. So in that stance, hands on our knees. We're going to take our knees through a big sweeping orbit as well. So we're rolling that pressure on our feet back to the heels, across the heels, up the sides of the foot, across the forefoot, not the toes, and back down the other sides of the feet, just like we were manipulating the edges on our skates. You should feel that pressure go across the heel, up the sides, across the ball of the foot, down the sides, back across the heel. Let's go the other way. Taking it around. And around. Two more. One more. And back. And we'll move up the chain, go straight into hip circles. So hands on hips, eyeballing yourself in your camera to keep your head nice and still. And now we're taking the hips around that full range of motion. And you're going to feel down at the feet that you got some pressure transferring your feet here too, but I want you to keep your toes relaxed, not let your toes put that pressure through the floor, and you'll feel again that pressure moves up the sides of your feet, across the ball of the foot, and down to the back, across the heels, and around again. Change direction, taking the hips right out and around. Okay, we've moved up the chain through the hips. We'll go to the lower back. We'll do that with some side slides to start with. We don't let any bending or twisting come into this. It's just we roll over almost with a shoulder shrug to initiate, and then keep that going. So we're curving our spine down the sides for that side reach each time. Sliding down, sliding down. Doesn't have to be aggressive. We don't need to bounce off the bottom, but we're just putting that movement through our back. Now we're going to do the same thing here. Again, trying to work in a really confined space. We'll start with the shoulder dip and chin tucked in and roll that downward. Roll it back up. Stretch it out the back. Tuck the chin in. Shrug the shoulders over and roll it down. Unroll it. Stretch back and down. Chin in. Shoulder shrug. Roll it down. Unroll it. Back up. Stretch it down. Into some jogging on the spot. Now this is all on the balls of the foot. It's a light touch on the ground for a minimum amount of time and a light tap behind just with the tip of the shoe. Directly back, feet are staying lined up with where we're going, and we try and translate that into as much of the off skate that we do, that feet alignment, because any time we're skating, we want as best as we can shoulders, hips, knees and skates all lined up where we're going. Let's switch that to a tap out the side. Same thing, keeping the feet aligned. We don't want to see the feet doing this and show the sides, show the insides of the feet. We want to keep them closed and headed out the side. Toes stay relaxed in your shoes. There's no role for them to play. All right, switch that to taps out the front. Light touch on the heel. And a light rebound on the ball of the foot. Coming back to face your camera again, now we're going to take the foot in a recovery circle before it comes back down and taps. During that recovery circle, again, we want to keep the feet pointing where we're going. So even though the feet do a quick loop, we try and keep them aligned. Shoulders, hips, knees, and toes, all pointed where we're headed. All right, going into a one leg balance now. So nicely in the middle of your space, we're going to be on one straight leg. This puts the work down at the ankle level. So locking out the leg that we're standing on, we're going to put our weight on our left leg, knees locked straight, right leg's just slightly bent to elevate the right foot off the floor. We're going to put our arms out and close our eyes. Keeping that left knee that of the leg we're standing on, we're going to keep that knee straight. So all of the work needs to go on at the foot. You're going to feel your foot doing all of the fine corrections that it needs to keep you balanced. Ten, keeping those eyes closed. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now let's change over. Moving on to the right leg now, locking the knee back, left knee bent to elevate the foot. Let's get arms out and eyes closed. Not a lot of exercises where I'm going to tell you to lock that knee, but in this one, that's what we're doing. We want all of the correction work being done down at the ankle. Trying to keep your toes relaxed. And you should feel that pressure. Most of the time in this exercise, it's going to be the ball of your foot and the pressure switching side to side in the ball of your foot to stop you from toppling one way or the other. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and done. All right, we're going to get back into the dynamic stuff now. So with some crossover jogging. All through this action, feet stay lined up with where you're facing. So feet and body facing front on. We're going to step into our space, cross over, step out, rebound off the side, into the space, cross over, step out and rebound to come back. Here we go. Always keeping an eye. You can look down, have a look at your feet, whether they're in the air or on the ground. They want to be pointed the same direction that you're facing. There's no twisting of the body, upper or lower. 3, 2, 1. Now we're going knees up. Here we go. Knees right over. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Done. All right. Into hurdle walking, we'll come back over to the right-hand side of your space. We're visualizing that hurdle, that's a hip height, and we need to step over it, over again, and we need to duck under it, slide under, step over, and duck under and slide under. So for me, where I am, I can use the bottom of that window sill as a bit of a guide, but you just need to visualize at that hip height and work with that. So big step over to clear it by a lot. Milk yourself underneath to clear it underneath by a lot. Over again and under again. Back to your left, over, under, over. Really making sure we get the butt low when we go under and down. Last time across, over, under, over, and under. All right, into some leg swings to finish off. Just doing 5 of each tonight. So remember, when we're doing our leg swings, we've got our neutral position that we always come back to between swings in either direction. And that's we bring the leg back until it's lined up with the other leg. It just doesn't get to touch the floor, but we need to bring it to a stop and then get it started again in the other part of the swing. So we'll go front to back to start with. We'll start swinging with our left leg. My one closest to the camera right now. We drive up, control down, stop. Drive back, control back, stop. That's 1. Up, back, 2. Up, back, 3. Trying to do this with a straight leg. Back. That's 4. Up. Back. That's 5. Switching now. The right leg we're going to swing. We drive up, control back. Drive back, control in. That's 1. Make sure we stop every time. That's 2. 3. 4. And 5. Going to go side on now. We'll start swinging the left. So moving slightly to the right-hand side of your space. Remembering to bring it controlled downwards. Stop at the bottom and then initiate the next movement. Here we go. Up, control back, stop. Across, back, stop. That's 1. 2. 3. 4. And 5. We'll change sides. Swing the right one now. Drive up, control back, stop. And across, control back. That's 1. Losing the balance. 2. 3, 4, and 5. That's done. All right, that's our warm up for tonight. You can grab a quick drink. Hopefully you've got that handy. And then we're going to get into our work. So as I said tonight, the focus is a little bit different. We want to keep the work going, but we're being mindful that we've got racing within about, where are we, Wednesday. So we've got Saturday racing, so we're only about 3 days out now. We don't want to do a session that's going to leave us with residual soreness, but we want to keep up all the range of movement stuff. We want to maintain all of our gains when it comes to leg condition, core condition, and positional control. We want to still be able to work a little bit of that explosive power that we've been developing, but we don't want to do it with so much work that we do any muscle damage that's going to take us till Thursday and into Friday to have some of the residual soreness, which is normal, but waiting for that to go away. So we're going to start out hands and knees. When you're turning side onto your camera, we're going to start out with our out and around exercise. And just for hip control and hip range of movement, particularly when it comes to getting low and having a full push. So like most exercises, we're going to keep a little hollow in our belly by turning on muscles in our pelvic floor, like we're going to try and avoid going to the bathroom. We're going to switch that on. It's going to leave us with a flat or slightly curved back, like I'm trying to maintain right now. What we don't want is our pelvis tilting rearward and it turning into a roller coaster in our lower back. We don't want that when we skate. We don't want it when we're doing our control exercises. So I'm rolling my pelvis forward and I'm switching on to create a little hollow in my belly. So we're going to push the leg back. I'm going to make myself enough space. Pushing back until we're aligned straight. Then we're going to swing it around, level with our body, swing it back, bring it back in, but not put it down. All right, here we go for 45 seconds and press it out. Around, back, and in. Push it out, around, back, and in. Use your cameras to check the feedback for yourself, or a mirror. If you're watching this on replay, you might want to set up in front of a window if it's dark outside. Just make sure you got the lights on inside. And keeping that pelvic floor muscle turned on. So you're controlling the rotation of your pelvis and the position of your lower back all the time. So about 15 seconds to go. Push it out, around, back, and in. Call this the last one. Out, around, back, and in. All right. Changing sides. So you can keep an eye on yourself going from the other side. Set that position up. Remember, a little bit of tension in the pelvic floor, a little bit of a curve in your lower back with your hips rotated underneath you. We're going to push that leg out. Here we go for 45. Bring it around flat and back. Bring it in without replacing it on the ground. Push it out, around, flat. Flat and high is the challenge. Keep it level with that line you've made through your body. Back and recover. Push it out. Flatten around, back and recover. That's the way. All with controlled speed. We're not trying to drive anything. There's no quick parts and slow parts. It never stops moving. It's as smooth as we can make it. Last one. Push it out, around, flat, back, and recover. Nice work. All right, we can get up from there. We're going to move on to the legs in this next one. That's probably the longest. It must be cold in here. This is about the longest I think I've spent to ditch the jacket during one of these workouts. Happy I can finally do it. All right, so as I said, I'm going to take out my bench to do these bench on this time. Set that up. Now you don't need to use a bench for this exercise. You can work off the ground. If you choose to use a bench, the key is that when you have a leg up on the bench, if you can see, this is where my hip joint is, not my hip where my pants are going to sit, but the joint where my leg and my torso are going to meet. So here's where my hip joint is. This is where my knee joint is. And you'll see that my hip joint is higher off the ground than where my knee joint is. That's really important for this exercise. If you get a step that's too big and it brings them up to level or takes your knee that little bit higher, you'll find that it's the leg that's on the ground ends up doing all the work to drive you up until you can get some leverage off the leg that we actually want to be working. So we make sure it's low enough that once that leg goes up, you can see the line there. Here's my hip joint. My knee joint sitting down here. So you can see there's a difference in elevation between the two. So I can make sure all of the work's being done by the leg that's up the top here. And when I drive up and over, it's always going to be this leg working, and I'm just picking this one up off the ground, not trying to push off it. So let's set ourselves up. Bench or no bench, all the work's being done by the lead leg here. So the lead leg, we pull our weight over onto it and we drive off it to switch and control the landing with the new lead leg. So if you're not working off a step, make sure you're right down deep in the skating position. And as you drive up and switch over, we don't want your torso becoming elevated. We want you to switch in the skating position all the time, like so. Okay, setting up on one side, we're going to go continuous for 45, and here we go. Making sure it's that lead leg that's doing all the work, like the inside leg on a corner. First movement that initiates a crossover, that's what we're working. 3, 2, 1, and done. Good job. Let's recover that. Moving into our standard pattern, so kicking up at the back. Making sure the knees stay down so we stretch the thighs on that movement. Knees up at the front. Trying to stretch the backside. And shaking the water out. Just like you got out the shower and you're trying to dry your feet off. Let those muscles be loose. Should almost feel them flapping around the bones. Go through again. Recovering with the knees pointed down, kickbacks to bring your heel up to your butt, stretching the thighs. You can push your pelvis a little bit forward and your shoulders back for those, and also stretch the hip flexors out a little bit too. Knees up. And shake the water out. All right, beauty. We're going to go back onto the ground again now. As I said, we're going to give plenty of scope for the legs to recover between things tonight. So we're going to be lying on our side and make sure one hip is stacked vertically over the other one. We're not going to lay back and turn our belly to the ceiling. We're also not going to roll forward and turn our butt to the ceiling. So we make sure that that's stacked up like so. I'm going to come out on a bent arm here. You can make a fist if you like, sideways on the ground to support your head and keep your neck straight. And this upper arm, if you're having a hard time rocking a little bit around on your hip, you can just put your fingers out on the floor in front of you to help stabilize you there. So we're going to bend our knees up just to 45. So I don't have my knees in front of my hips pointing straight out the front. It's just halfway, and the same with my knees. So this is the shape that I'm making when I'm lying on the floor. So I turn that over. Going to keep my hip nice and still. I'm going to leave the soles of my shoes sitting side on with one another, and I'm going to open my knee up as high as I can, and then I'm going to slowly bring it back down, but I'm not going to touch it against the other knee. I'm going to stop it where it's just hovering just here. Okay, we're going to do that continuously for 45. In 3, 2, 1, off we go. So we open all the way, close, but not shut. Open all the way, close without touching. Open all the way, close without touching. Now this finger that I've got on my hip while I'm doing this, I can move that around to that upper outside quarter of my butt and feel that I've got the right muscle turning on. This is the same muscle we use in the kill zone exercise. And it's the same muscle that when we're in a straight line, we start every push with. So when we first start pressing our skate out sidewards to shift our body weight, it's that glute med muscle on the upper outside quarter of our butt cheek that should be switching on and doing the work here. Remembering we're not letting our knees touch so we don't get to relax the pressure. We twist it on to open it all the way up and almost close it until it gets to rest. And then done. Now we're going to turn over, do the same on the other side. You can swing around if you need to. Watch yourself on the camera that way. Remember the position that I'm making on the floor is this one. Stacked up, the hips one above the other. So I'm going to open the knee, get it just off touching, and we're going to go for 45. Here we go. Open, close, but don't touch. Open, close, but don't touch. Let's find 1 or 2 fingers, take them around to that upper outside quarter of your butt, and you should feel that muscle having to do all of the work to rotate that hip outward and open. We're just going to slowly and continuously open that and close it. It's not an exercise that's tiring, but you might find, particularly towards the upper part of the opening, that you can feel your knees start to have some shudder in it from that muscle getting a bit fatigued with that work. So it's isolation work. It's the only thing working here. And you're likely to get a bit of shudder from it as it tires. 2, 1, last one, open it up and bring it down to rest. All right, we're going to get up. Now, keep an eye on the clock here. I'll get rid of this. All right, so we've done some activation for glute med there, which is, remember, if we take one butt cheek, we divide it into quarters, crossways and upways. It's the upper outside quarter. Find it here and here. And that is the muscle that if you take one leg off the ground, like if you pick up your right leg just by lifting the knee, rotate it open and close. And if you've got your fingers on glute med there, you'll feel that turn on to make that rotation occur. You'll feel it stick out like a golf ball into your fingers. That's the muscle that we need to be activating when we begin a push to the side. The very first bit of pressure that sends our skate, like tries to scuff it across the road that way, should be made with glute med. And when we turn it on properly, we send this hip square across the space. If we don't turn it on properly, this kind of movement happens, where we turn away from the working leg and we swing side to side on the track. So glute med doing its job means the very beginning of an outward push, the moment your weight starts pressing the skate that way, you're able to send this hip square across and do the same from the other side. So we're going to move into kill zone now. So they are baby steps. We're moving forward only about half an inch with every step, but we are pushing, we're switching this on and squeezing ourselves, making pressure to turn this on until the new foot lands, and we keep the pressure on, almost squeezing the legs apart until this one comes off the ground. And we use the other leg, we squeeze, squeeze, squeeze ourselves over, squeeze our legs apart, and then release. Really slow and controlled, and it's all about these knees group. Here we go. So in position, and let's go. Across, land, squeeze them apart, release. Across, land, squeeze them apart, release, and continue. You should feel that tension in that muscle we've been talking about. You want to keep it on from one leg, then both legs, then back to just one leg, and it's really relentless. We're not trying to really work any other muscles hard. We're maintaining good position. We've got that hollow in the belly from having our pelvic floor turned on and our hips tucked underneath us. There's a curve in our lower back that keeps a stretch in it, so we can maintain all day without our back getting sore. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and done. Good job. So if you've done that and the last exercise properly, you should feel this outside upper quarter just about on fire right now. Mine's got really good condition. I'm good at activating it, good at using it when I skate. But nonetheless, when I do exercises that focus on it like that, I can make it burn just as much as anything else. And that's what you should be feeling right now if you've done those exercises correctly. Okay, so we move again to something that's going to take us away from the leg and hip group and give us a little bit of a break. And we're going down onto the ground again. Now, bit of feedback I got from last week for the girls. If this is an exercise, or for anyone really, but particularly for the girls, if doing this exercise and getting down side on the ground is giving you a sore hip between where your hips on the floor, you might want to take an additional bit of foam padding and put that underneath you, or just get a small bit of rug. A couple of layers, doesn't need to be a lot, but just to ease the contact pressure between the outermost part of the hip and the floor, so you don't get concentrated pressure there. So we're going to go down to the ground and we're going to do the salmon exercise for our obliques. So we're lying side on, similar setup to before. Can make a fist and support my head and keep my neck straight with it. And I'm going to use the fingers of this other hand, going to keep my elbow in by my side and just put the fingers down on the ground so that I can stop myself from rolling back or forth too much. So when I do that, that's keeping my hip aligned straight up through the ceiling. But in this position, I'm going to have straight legs and a straight body, and I'm rolling this over and keeping my side to the ceiling. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch my obliques on, and I'm going to elevate both feet off the floor, like so, and hold. Trying not to roll backward or roll forward, so that action is going straight through the hip. We're going to hold that. This is like a variation on the side plank. We're just going to hold this for 30. And you've only got 10 seconds to go. 3, 2, 1, and you can release that and take it down. I'm going to turn around, go on the other side. So again, I've got a fist on the side of my head and an elbow outstretched. Everything else is laid flat. I'm turning that over onto the floor. Get back on the camera here. Elbow stays in by my side here. Fingers are on the floor to stop me rolling backward and forward. And I'm going to elevate both feet and push them up. They're apart. We've got both feet elevated. And that's using our obliques to get this angle through the pelvis so that we can definitely get this top leg in the air. We're working the outside muscle group on the top leg and the inside group on the bottom leg. So that's the abductor group on this top leg. And you can think of that as ab for AB and away from the body. We're trying to lift this leg. And the adductor group on this inside leg, ad being we're trying to bring this leg towards our center line. They're all switched on here. We've got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to go, and done. All right. And just for value, we're going to switch back to side A right now. And we're going to do a bit of variation on this theme here. So we're going back to side A. Now, I'm going to take my bottom leg. I'm going to leave the knee where it is. I'm going to slide the foot backward until there's a square bend in that bottom leg. And I'm going to let the top leg sit back down on it again. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use the bottom knee and press it into the ground so that we can push our hips up into the air. So it's that bottom shin gets pushed and we slide our hips upwards. So there should be a gap in here between your hip and the bottom leg, and then we bring it down and let it sit on the ground. So we're going to push it up, using the bottom leg to push it up, back down and sit it on the ground. You're only going to just get it off the ground, push it up and sit it down. Push it up and sit it down. Don't worry too much about what the top leg's doing, but we want to take this hip and get it off the floor. Push it up and let it down. Like you're pushing into a wall that won't let you move away from it. 2 more, push it up and let it down. This is the gap that we're trying to create, is down here between our hip and the floor. Last one, push it up and let it down. It's very small. You're probably not barely seeing it between my body and this mat. Might help if I get rid of the mat. You can just see my black shorts against the ground here. Turning over to this side, this will be our last time. So top leg is straight, bottom leg's bent back, and we're using the bottom leg to push the knee into the ground and push the hips up into the air like this. Only works the slightest amount, but we're pushing it up like so, and then letting it back down again. The top leg probably hovers with the effort, but we're not focusing on lifting the top leg up like that. We're focusing on using the knee of the bottom leg into the carpet and using it to push our hips up into the air. So here we go for 5 and 1. Push and hold. 2, 3, and down to rest. Push and hold. 2, 3, and down to rest. Push and hold. 2, 3, and down to rest. 2 to go. Push and hold. 2, 3, and down to rest. 1 to go. Push and hold. 2, 3, and down to rest. All right. We can get up again for a welcome break off the floor. Grabbing a quick drink. All right, we're back into the dynamic work again now. So I can clear my space a little bit, and anything that I might trip over, get rid of my mat, get my step that I had before and move that out of the way. We're going to do some drop jumps. We're going to keep those in the program this week. So our drop jumps is where we do a very small pre-jump. And the reason is to just make sure that we are dynamically landing and then having the generator take off the mat. So we could just squat down and jump, but that doesn't create as much free stretch and dynamic load on the muscles that we want to create power out of, as if we do a little jump and land from that. And as as we're falling into that landing, we immediately rebound out of it with the most powerful jump that we can manage. So we're going to do 45 seconds of continuous drop jumping. We're not racing from one into the next one. It's important to do these well, particularly the explosive power exercises, because the more perfectly you execute them, the more benefit that you get. All right, so setting yourselves up with enough space to do this. It's a small drop jump into an explosive jump. And when that explosive jump comes, you're dropping into a low position, not so low that you're slow to come up, low enough that you can soak it up and rebound. Arms are back at the bottom of the drop, and then we drive into a full extension that takes us as high as we can possibly go. Here we go for 45. 2, 1, go. Drop, jump. You turn around and repeat. Drop, jump. Soft landings at the end. Don't want to jar our knees or ankles. Drop, jump. Heading up, drop, jump. Heading up, drop, jump. Heading up, drop, jump. Last one, setting up, drop, jump, and a soft landing. All right, let's recover that. As soon as we introduce the drop component, it makes it a lot more load on the legs. The same with, so when we progress the off skate exercises, initially we're doing stuff that's a single movement, not dynamic of one movement into the next. And then we can progress that to one movement into the next, for the next level of difficulty. Going from there, we can add some pre-jump components, like falling into a rebound, like the drop jump. And then we can do the exact same level of progression again, doing single leg exercises. Because of course, once we add gravity and the dropping, we're amplifying the amount of force that our legs have to take up to turn that movement into another direction, like rebound from a jump. And of course, when we do that on one leg, our body weight's effectively doubled. When you add the force of gravity to that with twice your body weight, and you can imagine how much load is getting taken up by the muscles in the feet, the lower leg and the upper leg, when we're doing dynamic jumping, particularly if we're doing it as on a single leg basis. All right, we're going to do a second set of drop jumps now. It's going to be again 45 continuous. 45 shouldn't really set up too much fatigue, so we should be able to go with quality throughout. Okay, so setting yourself up in the corner. Here we go for 45. Drop, jump, and a soft landing. Drop, jump, and a nice soft landing. Drop, jump, and a nice soft landing. Should be quiet landings and shouldn't hit your body hard. Fifteen seconds left. Second quality. Next one will be our last one. Drop, jump, and recover. Good job. Those 45 seconds continuous dynamic. Whew. For anything like me, it's probably sent your heart rate straight up and your breathing to match. And we talked about that in our last episode. Your heart rate always lags a little bit behind the work. Once your body starts working harder than the chemical processes in the muscles can manage themselves, the signals are there that the muscles need a lot more oxygenated blood to keep doing the same job. So the heart rate and your respiratory rate start ramping up to match. But it means that initially your work, if my work is my right hand and my heart rate is my left hand, your work flies up and your heart rate does this. Work staying high and the heart rate's coming after it. Work stays high. Heart rate comes up, finally matches, work stops, heart rate keeps going, and then the heart rate starts coming down to recover. And if we do a couple of repeats, that means we have work here and heart rate here, and the repeats start to look like this. Work goes up and hits high, heart rate follows slowly. Work stops, now we're resting. Heart rate's still going up. Heart rate realizes that we've caught up, starts coming down. Next work bout starts. Heart rate comes up again, comes up to match. And eventually the heart rate stays up and the breathing stays up high and starts oscillating along with it, even though we're having full recoveries in between. And that's a little bit like how a points race ends up. By the time you've done a few sprints, this is what's happening to your heart rate and your respiratory rate in the points race. All right, we get to go onto the floor again now. We're back onto an ab exercise. This is going to be bear taps. We're pretty familiar with this one. One's not too damaging. We're going to go for a minute continuous. So lower pelvic floor muscle turned on. Hips are tucked underneath. We're not creating that roller coaster. Rotating the hips in. We're going to move up to a hover position where we just press up onto the toes. We keep the knees off, flat back, and we're going to slowly reach, touch the opposite knee gently, slowly back and replace the hand and switch to the other side. And we're going to keep our body movement as minimum as possible. Like if someone was watching us and they couldn't see our hands and feet on the floor, they'd have to not know we were moving. Let's go for 1 minute. So slow, controlled movement. Feel your muscles and what has to work for you to keep your body super still. And let's keep that pelvic floor muscle on and our hips rotated underneath. Doesn't matter how slow you're doing the action, we just want it to be super smooth. That's 30 seconds done. Remember to keep that pelvic floor switched on, like we're trying to avoid peeing ourselves. That helps us keep really rock solid in the midsection to hold this position. Helps us keep a gentle curve in the lower back and a hollow in our belly. When we're skating, that lets us move our body as one, makes our body weight transfer way more effective. And when we sprint, it helps avoid any wasted energy from trying to control our body from flailing around while we skate as hard as we can. All right, we come back down and rest from that. And we're going to come back up and go back to some leg work. Grab another drink if you need it. I think I need it from talking too much. All right, so we're going to do some split jumps in our next exercise. One of the big challenges is split jumps is, again, maintaining that position. So taking the skating position when we step out and being able to keep it there as we drive up, switch our legs in the air and come down and land in the split position again. We want to keep our hips in the whole time, our face down. Eyes can stay outward, but we want to keep our face down so that we're avoiding coming from here, driving up and having to straighten up in the top and then get back down again. We want to maintain that position the whole time. Just going to close something here that isn't having the best time for some reason. Okay, so we're going to take this one step at a time. We're not going to dynamically go between one and the next. So we'll step out into the split position. We've got arms ready to go. We're going to switch and drive back. We can only stand up each time we drive back. Here we go for 45 continuous. Step, switch, drive back. Step, switch, and drive back. Step, switch, and drive back. Step, switch, and drive back, and continue. Helps to keep it face down while we do these. And remember, don't recruit the toes to do any work. Seconds to go. Last one. Drive back. All right, let's recover that. To start with, because the hip flexors do a lot of low down work, let's push, let's stretch way up, lengthen ourselves right out, and we'll slightly tip to one side. Holding that for 5, 3, 2, 1, back to the middle, pushing up to the ceiling, pulling your belly in, making yourself as flat and tall as you can. Let's rock to the other side gently, staying as long as possible. For 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and back to the middle. Nice and tall. And let it go. All right. So for our last exercise, we go back to the floor now. And this is one that we haven't done before. Counters a lot of the work that we have to do with our lower back. Make sure we've got some strength through the back, particularly for some of that dynamic exercise. So we're going to lie flat on the floor. I'll just try and show this in the diagonal of the space. So I've got my arms outstretched, like so. My legs outstretched as well. And what I'm going to do is lift up. I'm going to keep my chin on the ground. I'm going to lift up my right arm and left leg as hard as I can. And then I'm going to put them back down, press them into the floor while I lift up my left arm and left leg as strongly as I can. Bring them back down, press them into the floor while I go back to the right arm and the left leg. Okay, so we're going to do repeats of that, controlling the glute work that's got to elevate the leg and the shoulder work that's got to elevate a straight arm. We're going to go continuous for 45. Here we go, outstretched. And we'll start with right hand, left leg, squeeze it up. 2, 3, down, press them into the carpet, and lift the other side. Left hand, right leg. 2, 3, bring them down, press them into the carpet. Right hand, left leg. 2, 3, press them back down. Left hand and right leg. 2, 3, and press them back down, and continue. If it's uncomfortable to keep your chin on the ground, you can just touch your nose on the floor nice and gently. We don't want to be working our neck and knees. So each pair, we elevate them as far as we can, hold them there for a 3 count, then press them back down into the carpet. Last side, and we're up, hold, 2, 3, bring them back down, and we're done. Good job. So we're going to go from there. We'll stay on the floor. We're going to do a push-up combination exercise, not one that's too difficult. So with this one, we'll be in the push-up position. Now, if you have a hard time doing a long number of push-ups, this particular exercise won't have you doing continuous push-ups. You'll do one, and then you'll push back out to straight arms and do and exercise with the straight arms before we come back to the push-up. So you'll get a good few seconds rest between each single push-up that you do. If you're having a hard time with that still by doing it for any length of time, just do a half push-up. Don't go down to full depth with your chest at the floor. That should allow you to keep this exercise going. What we're going to be doing, so we're going to be in that plank position, but not on our elbows. We're up on our hands, keeping a flat line through the remainder of our body. We're going to do a push-up. We're going to go down and back up. And then I'm going to let my feet slightly rock over to my left side, and I'm going to sit back towards my left heel. I can't quite sit back there. I'll turn around, show you the same. It's going to be a push-up. My feet rock over and I sit back towards this, stretching my arms out. Push myself back to the plank. I'm going to push up. Now I'm going to sit back and twist towards the right side, coming back to my flat position. I'm going to continue that for 45. Okay, setting yourselves up. 2, 1. So push up or half push up if that's what you need. Straighten them out. And we're going to sit and twist to our left. Come back to plank. Push up or half. Straighten it up. Sit and twist to our right side. And back to the plank. Push up. To straight. Sit, twist to the left. And back to plank. Push up. Sit, twist to the right. And back to the plank. Nearly there. Push up. Sit, twist to the left. Back to the plank. Push up. Sit, twist to the right. Back to the plank. Last one. Push up. Sit, twist to the left. And then back to the plank to finish. Good job. Well done. All right. That's a good effort, everyone. Now, we're going to bring it to a close there. What I will do while we're still on the session is use our last couple of minutes to just run through some of the stretches that I would typically do after one of these sessions. So the recommendation stays the same. To cool down from these 1 hour off skate blocks, a 3-minute continuous jog, just nice and easy. It's just promoting a little bit of muscular load and a bit of blood flow to get through the muscles, take all the byproducts of that work out, help us recover more quickly. And then after that 3-minute light jog, 10 or 20 minutes stretching, just going through each stretch once or twice with about a 1 minute to 1.5 minute hold on each stretch. But while we're here and we're recovering and catching our breath for a second, I'll go through some of these stretches with you so you can commit a few to memory. And then after you do your 3-minute jog, you can get stuck into some of these. So I like to do as many of my stretches as possible on the floor, because particularly if we're stretching at the right times, which is after work or after a workout, when we're a little bit fatigued, it's good to be able to relax and wind down and not have to support our body weight too much. So first up, for the quads, front side of the legs, I'm going to get into a position that's a little bit like this one. So I'm left leg's down on the ground with my knee open and my foot out in front of me. And I'm doing a matching shape. I'm tumbling. If you like, you can start like this and we tumble to the left and then make that shape. Once I've made that shape and I've tumbled to the left, I'm going to go back on my left elbow and I'm going to take my right foot and pull it right up, tuck it under my butt as best as I can, and then lay my shoulders back. I'm laying my shoulders back to make the longest stretched line possible between my right shoulder, my right hip, and my right knee. And the lower I can get that shoulder, the more stretch goes through my right hip at the hip flexor, and I stretch out that thigh. So same thing, we go on the other side. We'll just run through these and you can do these later. We go back to the neutral position, knees up and open, tumble to the right, onto the right elbow, and then bring that left foot up underneath your butt. And I'll let those shoulders go back. And we push the knee down to the ground and try and press the hip up towards the ceiling to get as much stretch through the left thigh as we can. So we've got that one, and again for a minute and a half on each side. So to get at the glutes and hip rotation, so I'm going to face in the camera with both feet. I'm going to take my right foot and put it on the outside of my left knee, so I'm crossing over, sitting my foot down there, and then I'm bringing it back a little bit. I'm going to take this knee with both hands and move it towards me, a little bit of a hug. But the important part is that I'm keeping my back nice and straight. If I start rolling my back into this, I cause a curve that doesn't let me stretch this out. But if I keep my back straight as I pull the knee towards me, then I get the stretch back here. Now to help that stretch along, on the straight leg that's out in front of me, I'm going to start bending the knee up into the air, and that lifts the foot up as well. So if I want to bring it closer, I can push that knee up, and that helps fold that leg up to me a little more. Keeping my back straight, and I hold that hug. Same goes for the other side, crossing my left over my right, make it nice and high, hold onto the knee, and I can break at that front knee to help me bring that hug in, but remembering to sit up as tall as possible, chin tucked in, head up high, and we bring that stretch around the outside of the glute. So next one, going to go onto both knees. I've got my toes out on the floor and my heels underneath my butt to set this up. So from the back, looking a bit like this. So that's the initial setup. Knees are open, and I'm sitting on my heels, toes are tucked in underneath me. So I'm going to take one leg, I'm going to stick it out straight like that with my toes pointing relatively upward. They're a little bit forward, but they're not laid down on the ground, mostly pointed towards the ceiling. And then I'm going to use my hands if I need to keep opening this knee out until I feel like I'm as open as I can make things. And then with a very straight back, so pushing my chest forward, I'm going to put my hands out on the floor, and I'm going to lean into that. As I lean into it, if I need more opening, I just shuffle myself around, and I should feel a stretch in here and all along here. And I'm just going to sink into that, pushing my chest out and forward towards the carpet. Once I've held that for a minute in that position, I can leave my legs where they are, and I can move using my hands around towards the extended leg until I can put one of my hands on the outside of it, and I press my chest towards that leg while I'm out here. Positions haven't changed. I'm trying not to curve my head down. I'm trying to keep a straight back and push my chest in that direction. I should feel that behind the leg very much. There's another minute to be spent there. Same thing goes for the other side. So we fold back in. I'm sitting on my heels with my toes bent back underneath me. I'd extend the other leg out here. Make sure I'm nice and open, pressing forward to get that stretch there for 1 minute. And then after the minute, moving around till I'm on this side, and I'm pressing my chest towards that foot for another minute. Okay, going from there, we can also go straight into the hamstring. Nice and straightforward, so we're on our backs. The hamstring, we've got one leg outstretched. The other leg, even if there's a little bend in it, we're going to bring this other leg up. We're going to hold it where we can. Just get that just under the calf. Once we've got hold of it, and I'm just meshing my fingers around the back of it, as I settle into that stretch, I can push my foot towards the ceiling a little more. And as I push my foot towards the ceiling, my hands stop the leg getting any further away, but it causes my knee to extend and extend that stretch a little bit. While you're doing this, you might notice that the leg on the ground comes up into the air a little. That's okay. We're focusing on the hamstring of that leg. The same goes for the other side. We bring it up and get hold of just lower than the calf with meshed fingers behind it. And we would pull it back, sort of pulling it back until I got my shoulders on the ground. And over time, I would slowly push my heel towards the ceiling to stretch that out. And we're holding that one for a minute as well. So going on to another, unfortunately, every now and again, we come into one that we've got to get up on our feet for. So I use a couch or a bench or something similar for this. I'm going to take my feet out behind me. Now I'm going to stretch the calf on the leg that's closest to the camera. So I'm going to take this free leg. I'm just going to hook my foot and rest it here so it's not on the ground. And I've got this leg bent back, my heel's just off the ground. So I've got to find an angle where I can keep my heel in the air while I'm pushing it towards the floor. And then I'm going to keep a nice straight line through my body here. Depending on whether or not you hit that stretch well or not, I will take the foot that's on the ground and either slightly rotate it open, see if that helps me hit the stretch, or slightly rotate it closed and see if that helps me hit the stretch anymore. And again, we've got a minute held here on each calf. We'll switch over to the other side and on the other side. Don't be surprised if you get the stretch well on one calf and not so well on the other. Not unusual for one to feel a bit tighter than the other one. There's two muscles in the calf group, and the other one we need to stretch while we've got a bent knee. So the alternative stretch for that one, stretching the leg that's closer to the camera, I'm going to take a 90-degree bend in the knee to push away from my bench a little bit more. And again, I'm finding a spot where I need to move to that lets me push the heel almost to the floor, not quite, it's got a little bit of float, and sitting over it. The totally different feelings to stretch this. It's stretching the soleus that sits underneath the calf muscle, but we need to do it with a deep bend in the knee. So again, I'm just hanging the leg I'm not using here, or just sitting it lightly on the ground, but the leg that's got all the load on it is this one to the camera, heel slightly off the ground, and I'm bending into it to try and push my heel towards the floor, but it can't quite get there. There's a minute held on that, but again, it's important that we've got our heel just slightly up off the floor, and we do the same when we hit the other side. All right, so again, minute to a minute and a half on each stretch. I'll just leave it there. I won't give you too complex a set. But remember, so 3 minutes of easy jogging from here, and then getting into those stretches, probably 10 or 20 minutes total, but look to spend a minute and a half on a hold stretch. When you hold for that kind of time, you'll feel the muscle gradually start relaxing during the stretch. And you might only get another couple of millimeters out of the stretch by doing it for a period of time, but that period of time is really important to get a little bit of stretching development in.